Good evening to our venerables and good evening to everyone who is here in person as well as also those who are joining us online. Welcome to another Metta Centre event. Tonight we are so blessed to not have one but two speakers travelling from overseas to Sydney visiting us, and we are so happy that they have taken the time to come here to share the Dhamma with all of us. And tonight our speakers are Bhante Sukhacitto from Germany, and we also have Bhante Londonaye Dhammagawesi from London. Both of these speakers have been to Metta Centre previously, but just sharing a little bit about their biography. So Bhante Sukhacitto was born in Germany and first came into contact with Buddhism in 1986 in Thailand by attending a meditation retreat. And there that was a retreat at Wat Suan Mokkh. He ordained there as a monk in 1990 and then returned to the West in 1993. Since then, he's lived in various monasteries and also he's practiced in various ways and followed different teachers. And he was also in Dhammapala Monastery in Switzerland for 6 years and Amaravati Monastery in the UK for 4 years. On his first Insight Dialogue retreat in 2005, he was amazed by the powerful experience of meditating together with other people, and so subsequently joined many more Insight Dialogue retreats. And if we have the time today, we may hear a bit more about this Insight Dialogue, because it is something that Venerable is still continuing on with as a tool that he sees as a tool for liberation. And for 3 years, Bhante has been running the Kalyana Mitta Vihara, or the House of Noble Friendship, a small community where relational practice is part of the living. So very interesting, and I hope that we can tease out some of those things tonight in our dialogue together. And as for Venerable Dhammagawesi, he is a Theravada Buddhist monk ordained in Spring Hill Forest Monastery in the hilltops of Kandy in Sri Lanka. He entered the monastic life in 2007 and received high ordination in 2008 within the Kalyana Yogasarama sect under the auspiciousness of the late Most Venerable Nagayani Arigadama Mahatero. He was born in the UK and educated in Sri Lanka, and he completed his studies in Trinity College in Kandy before migrating to the UK, where he lived for 28 years. And so he was previously in professional background in telecommunications in consulting, and then he renounced all of that in the worldly life and joined the monastic community, committing himself in the path of liberation. And he has extensive experience in the practice of the Vinaya and meditation, and also under teachers, but also as a teacher in his own right to an international community of students. And in Australia, he has supported various communities, groups and families, offering guidance in both personal circumstances and meditation practice. And so again, we will be hearing potentially more about that in our dialogue today, about how he is able to provide his service in that relational space as well. So I think we've got two fantastic speakers for tonight's dialogue, and it is very interesting because it's not just going to be a conversation between one speaker and all of us, it's between two and all of us. And you're invited to participate in this dialogue and conversation. So for those who are here in person, you're welcome to just ask questions and join in the dialogue. For those who are, and we do have a mic for you, and for those who are online, you could also put up your electronic hand and we'll come to you. You can speak, or you are welcome to pop things into the chat and I can facilitate that as well. So the topic for tonight is called The Wisdom of Not Knowing, Embracing Mystery Through Contemplation. Such an interesting topic. What does it mean? Well, in a world that values certainty and quick answers, especially with AI and ChatGPT and all that, this session is really a reflection on how to let go of fixed views to foster deeper understanding. So, with that in mind, I'm first going to invite Bhante Sukhacitto to start us with an exercise. Meditation, exercise, something like that. Venerable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina. Thank you, Metta Centre, and thank you. This is the world first time we meet, I think, this lifetime, you know. So I don't know how she takes the statement from the fantastic speakers. You better find out. You know, don't have any expectation that makes our life easier, I think. I do have a request like last week. If those who are participating online if you would have the generosity to put on your camera, that would be very supportive. Quite a few of you have done so already, but if you would mind, also it might support your practice, that you're visible what you might do. We'll see, So if you would be so kind to put on your camera, I, at least maybe Fernando as well, would appreciate that we'll see you. And the wisdom of not knowing. So I was thinking again, when I say start with a few minutes of meditation, is really, when I say that, it means like before we were not meditating, and now we start to meditate. There's a bell, and then serious, close your eyes or have your eyes open, put your back straight. Now, meditation. And then another bell after a few minutes, and then meditation is over or something else, So bells can be very helpful reminder. It's a special practice period, but it can be also detrimental to continuity of practice if we have the idea, now meditation starts, now meditation ends. And I would like to invite us, and please practice as you see fit. 10 minutes?
That's fine.
I look at the clock. I was thinking, and really develop an interest in this if you want. It's much easier to know what the Buddha called Sukha Vedana or Dukkha Vedana. When we have a sense impression with something, when we see something, hear, taste, smell, touch, think or so, there's a pleasant flavor to it, or there's an unpleasant flavor to it. And usually our often automatic reaction to pleasant experiences is, I like it, more intensive, there's liking usually, grasping. And often to unpleasant experiences, Vedana, sense impressions, is, get away from it. I don't like it. I want it to end or something like that, But it's much more difficult to detect and be with that experience of what the Buddha is very refined in terms of neighbor dukkha asukha, So neither pleasant nor unpleasant, or neither unpleasant nor pleasant. And sometimes people say neutral, but for me, neutral is already a statement, neutral is like fixed, but it's really not knowing, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So how do I know this? Can I develop an interest in this? What is it, And can we really get interested in this 10 minutes of silence now in that what is not so clear if it's pleasant or not pleasant? That's what we normally don't pay attention to, because we easily jump then to the pleasant or unpleasant, because we feel clear in terms of orientating ourselves, in terms of, sense of self. Pleasant, liking, unpleasant, not liking. But neither nor, what do we do with it, So we can be puzzled, we can be developing a beginner's mind, like a little child or something. What is this? Oh, how does that feel? So something like that. You want to add something?
I think you covered it well, Bhante. We'll take one.
Okay, so there will be a bell now. That's the beginning of the meditation. So seriously now investigate neither pleasant nor unpleasant, not knowing.
Okay, I've set it for 10 minutes. It will automatically go.
Okay, you did already. She's so knowledgeable. what happens now, hearing this sound, many of the people sitting here, they had their eyes closed. Now, some of them have opened their eyes again. Would it be acceptable for you, Bhante, if we just asked what people experienced?
Please, go ahead. Yes,
So
Bhante.
please, if you could share what was happening for you the last 10 minutes. How was that investigation? Did you learn anything about not knowing? Yeah. Do we have a microphone?
For me, I felt like because
I think the microphone. Is it?
It's called Zooms.
the exercise was to, maybe I got it wrong, I don't know, to find that non-unpleasant flavor. My mind was kind of giving that flavor to whatever sensation I was feeling. So if I was feeling something unpleasant, I was like, wait, maybe this is not unpleasant. I felt like I was like giving the like not neutral, but that flavor to it. I don't know, like setting up that mindset for whatever I was feeling.
Anybody else?
So the past 10 minutes, I was trying to apply a technique I actually learned yesterday that whenever there's thoughts coming in, I'm trying to let go of it or trying to focus on breathing instead of that particular thought, because I was told that these thoughts they're supposed to be neutral, they're not good or bad unless you actually put judgment to it, which means it can be pleasant or unpleasant. But if you let go of it instead of go along with that thought, you should be able to detach. But it's something that I'm still struggling with, and it's something that I'm trying to fix or improve to reach, I guess, a different level. Yeah.
I couldn't attach myself to a feeling of pleasant or unpleasant feeling, but I was just trying to focus on my breath and trying to not let any, because every time I had a thought, I was just trying to come back to my breath rather than attach any feelings to whether it's pleasant or unpleasant.
I found my mind got bored really easily because there's nothing to look for there. And then it quickly went on to things that I don't like and things that I like. And yeah, my mind quickly went on to, oh, my nose is feeling cold. I don't like the cold. Oh, the breathing, the warm air is really nice, very pleasant. And so it went on to pleasant and unpleasant very quickly because it got bored with that neutral state.
I partly struggled with trying to find this neutral state. I'm trying to say, okay, what is that? Like I couldn't identify anything at the beginning. But then I had a pain on my neck. So I had a bit of a pain on my neck. So then my mind kind of went to relaxing that first, because I thought maybe that will help to get into a more neutral state of mind. And then I did come to a place where there was like nothing exciting, nothing really happened. But I only stayed with that very brief.
No, just like practice some metta meditation. So just I guess it's kind of acting relaxing kind of as often it is. So maybe
it was very peaceful for me. So thank you for leading that, Bhante.
Maybe before Venerable Dhammagawesi can speak, I just allow a few comments, like what I heard from you and see for yourself. On one hand, this not knowing the discomfort, this, what do I do? So some of us really retreated to our ordinary ways of meditating, you know, watching the breath, thinking, coming back to the breathing or metta or whatever. So we want to go often to the familiar, you know, but this not knowing to know is a challenge, you know. How do we know not knowing? And then quite a few of you use the word neutral, you know, where I said, in my understanding, it's not wrong or bad, but, you know, but the Buddha was very refined in his use of language, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. For me, that's a huge difference compared to neutral. You know, neutral is like, I kind of make a fix already somehow. But anyhow, this is just something, and I'm very grateful because you were really sharing from your experience, your practice, and your investigation. Yeah.
I really know what you mean, Bhante, because I automatically went to familiar, which is the breath, because usually the breath is also something that could be neither pleasant nor unpleasant, but as the mind settles, it becomes pleasant. So I actually had to actively find a place in my body that was neither pleasant nor unpleasant, like my knee. All the sensations.
And I think you don't mind if I make a little provoking statement, like that idea, you know, watching the breath. It's really so sad if our main understanding of meditation is just watching the breath. Friends, you can be an expert becoming watching the breath and you can still stay a fool for the rest of your life or many lives, or you cannot develop much wisdom watching your breath. That's fact, I think. So anyhow, I'll pass on to
Sadhu, 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 Bhante. Take your permission to speak. So friends, after listening to you of your experience and the word meditation as a practice that we did, this mind that you are trying to slow down is always associated with one of your 6 faculties. So those of you who at a comfort zone went to your breath, well, the breathing or the smell associated is one of your faculties. Okay? So if you are asked as a practice to look at the naturality of Vedana, the word Vedana, sensations of pleasant or unpleasant, but to look at something in between, identified as the pleasantness in Pali is Sukha, unpleasant is experienced as Dukkha, the middle part is known as Adukkama Sukha. As Bhante said, we would like a word so we can cling to that word to identify the experience as neutral, of equanimous, upekka, neither this nor neither that. But it is not easy to get to Vedana in your mind when the mind is as restless as it has been during the day. So now to come here for just a few minutes and then to very quickly try to keep it in that zone is not easy. So listening to all of you with whatever the disturbances that you came here with, okay? And then to have spent that 10 minutes looking for that stillness, well done. Well done. Don't be frightened that I wasn't able to follow the instruction. You followed it with a faculty associated with your life, with a thought, as one of the faculties. The mind, the manas. So like this, don't be frightened. Just get to one faculty and learn to be there for a duration first. Yeah? Get to the faculty, be there. If you're watching your breath, get to the breath and learn to be with the breath for a while. It's only when you stay there for a duration, you begin to see the conditions we are talking about of not to go any place. So happy that you all explained your experiences, but everybody had the faculty of looking or listening or smelling or taste, your physicality. Yeah. You were saying, I felt cold and warm. That's just the way this body feels. And be happy that you were at least able to see that in you, right? and to be pleasant with it or unpleasant with it or whatever the experience. Now you have to, wait for a longer period with that experience. Only then you begin to see this middle path, adukkama sukha. We come to it, as Bhante says, unknowingly. We come to it in our day-to-day life unknowingly. Right? We pass so many things in the shops, but we don't look at everything. They are not something that disturbs me. Say, I don't like it. I like this. No, you just pass it. Yeah. So this experience is present in our day-to-day life, but as an exercise, when you come and force yourself, now you need a little bit more structure to look at this in that way in yourself. Yeah. Okay. Pleasure.
Is there anything you wanted to comment on before I move to asking another question?
I'd just like to invite us to, just pause for a minute or so. Did I last week introduce the M&M meditation? The minute meditation, mini meditation, magic mindfulness, or a few.
Maybe just a recap for those who weren't here.
Wake up! It's like, well, 1 minute serious meditation now. No, just be with what you heard. How does that resonate? Do you agree or not agree? The question came to my mind, he answered it very quick. What does it mean by faculty? It's one of the sense doors, or the 5 physical senses, or the mind door. What I heard from your meditation experience also was Bhante was referring to. For me, we are in the middle of the investigation. And for me, looking at blindness is very difficult. How can I look at something which I don't see? And I don't know why this comes to mind, but a number of years ago, I was in when I say retreat, it was not a strict silent retreat, but I was 9 days in the dark, a dark retreat. But we were speaking, and it was not a kind of, oh, good, that is closed, but in the dark, you see, and the leaders of that practice, they were very experienced with the dark. So sometimes, and we had like what you call
Blindfold.
Blindfold, yes, because in the old days they used this retreat center and everything they made dark. That means also they had to tape the windows and the doors because you get so sensitive to light. I remember there was one shower which was completely dark, so you could take off your what you call blind, and it was completely dark. But when you came out of the shower, you saw the light underneath the door coming through. Or there was this in my room when I took off the blind. You see that light, that blink of the smoke detector. You become so sensitive to light. But in the dark, you see, especially if you're long enough in the dark. Yeah, when you close your eyes, for instance, there is an experience of seeing, right? Not that you see. What do you see? There is experience of the sense door of seeing. So what is that like? How do you describe this? I remember many years ago, you lived in London. I'm not sure if you were at that time in London. They had at the Modern Tate an exhibition piece, Walking into the Dark. And it was so fascinating when I first went there. you walk into complete darkness, and then you hit a wall where you could sense, the tactile sensations of, and I really noticed how to say this, a sense of self looked for orientation. In the dark, there was no, I could still stand on the floor, but with that sense of touching the hands, touching a wall, there was some sense of orientation. The self, quote unquote, this idea of self, looked for something to orientate. Yeah. So I was fascinated by that. I liked it so much, 1 or 2 weeks later, I went again. I wanted to have that same experience. And then so many people were there, and they had these, powerful devices, mobile phones. And when they are on in the dark, the screens, there's no more darkness. So they destroyed my experience again, Wow. But can we bring this freshness of mind, of not knowing, what is this darkness? What is this I don't know? And we often see what we know, the liking, the disliking, and really be at that edge, or do we get so bored with the liking and disliking that we are more open to the not knowing? I don't know, something like that.
So then we'll pick up on that story about how when we are in that situation, and it is all very dark, metaphorically and literally, there is that sense of wanting to know and have that sense of identity and that concept of I am here in this space and time. Is that similar to why there is that attachment to knowing rather than being able to be okay with the not knowing?
Exactly. One of the things that happens is that if you physically disable one of your sense faculties, say for eyes, and the mind could still look, but your eye can't see. Momentarily, to confirm the knowing, your mind moves from looking to listening, and momentarily associate with the ear and listen to hear what is going on, as that becomes a tangible component, like seeing with your eye. Yeah. So this is how the mind constantly moves, like what we say a monkey mind. It moves from one sense faculty to the next sense faculty and that associated memories. So you can come back to that knowing situation. So if there's no sound and if it's dark, you would go back to the nose with the breathing to see whether you could smell something, and then confirm something in yourself that I am still alive, or consciousness, or whatever that you would relate with in that way. Right? And if none of that is there, you will come back to your physical tongue and you will start coughing or making some sound, right? To confirm to yourself of the knowing that you're talking about. So we move around in this, but we have not been aware that we are moving around, that I am moving around in this way. And every time I go any place, all what is there is a choice. And I think that I would, encourage all of you to go back to the first sermon of the Buddha, of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. In the sutta, when the Buddha comes to the 5 disciples at Varanasi, the first thing he says in his words as a sermon, in Pali, Dve me bhikkave anta pabbajitenana sevitabba. And how this refers to each one of you here is that he said that if you are ever born in any form in this universe, you will be subjected to a choice, duality, a two-sided choice. Okay? Such as if I take an example in this way, here's a little piece of cloth, fabric. When this fabric was made, when this side was made, even the other side also got made. One cannot make this side without making this side. So one is now subjected to 2 sides to choose from. which side to choose, which side to use. Right? So here begins the conflict in our lives. No two people chooses the same side. Every person in their own circumstances seems to justify a preference as what is pleasant and what is unpleasant. Yeah. And in this pleasantness, if it is pleasant, I like pleasantness. And if it is unpleasantness, it turns to be dislike. So you must see the origin of likes and dislikes in yourself. And it is not a it's not something that is common as in no two people would have the same likes and same dislikes. And this is why this meditation becomes so personal. This life begins so personal. But living a life with family, living a life in groups, living a life in community brings the conflict that each and every one of us are experiencing. For the mere reason that trying to find compatibility between two people, trying to ask another person or asking yourself to compromise so we can come to some amicable circumstance is what this world is about. And this is what each and every one of us are going through an experience of exhaustion. Maybe most of us are unwilling to give in, right, to what we like. Not maybe that we are unwilling to give in to people with authority who are trying to control us with their own perceptual choice. So my mind is constantly exposed to this duality and having to choose. Here you have a choice to be or not to be, to listen or not to listen. Each one of you, and then you in your own way is just playing some tune in yourself. That's all you're doing. And this we relate to life. This is all we've done. And it doesn't matter whether you are born in a, animal world, right? Or an astral bodied world, you still have this choice. Choice of solids, choice of liquids, choice of gases, heats, whatever the makeup and the formation in this universe, I have a choice to be with it and to experience something with it as a like or a dislike. And now, if you look at your own selves and ask yourself a question, if you have likes, in the Vibhanga Sutta, he asks, have you received all the things you like, the way you like it, the amount you like it, at the times you like it, in the places you like it? Have you? No. So if you have not received, and this deprivation of your choice is carried on from day to day, now what happens? Is it a pleasant experience or unpleasant experience? Unpleasant. So your mind is already in an unpleasant situation with your past, with your choices. With this unpleasantness, maybe that some of you have also some aversion or anger that also accumulates with. And this is just the way each and every one of you now responds, reacts to situations in your life with others around you. Look inside and you'll know. So this is what the Buddha first identifies as tanha. This choice and the way you choose what you like and the way you choose dislikes is what this tanha does to you. And if any one of you have not reduced this tanha, Now the volatility in your mind becomes greater and greater and greater. The one who has learned to reduce the likes, reduce the dislikes, or reduce your choice, or maybe reduce the variety with the choice, their mind becomes what you call more still, more manageable, and that concentration is what is needed to do what Bhante is asking you to do, to look at a point where it is neither pleasant or neither unpleasant. But we are unable to come to that because we have been going at such a rate with our choices, proving that my choice is better than yours, egoistically.
You see, so that topic of tanha, craving. So when there are unpleasant sensations, then there is the craving to be away from it. When there is something that is pleasant, then there is the craving of having more of it. And so what I'm hearing from both of you is there is also those feelings of neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And so with that, there isn't so much the craving that we usually experience with the polar opposites, but rather that is where there is the not knowing. There is the sense of not being aware of it in that mindlessness. Is that a good summary of what has been discussed so far?
It is one way to summarize it.
I'm challenged here, you know, like, oh, a lot of sankharas arose listening to this venerable.
So true. Thank you, Bhante.
Be careful, you know, because he seemed to be so convincing, you know, so firm, so stable, so embodying what he says, you know, he's really there. Don't believe because it seems to be, you know, make sense. Or this venerable seems to know, or like Kalama Sutta, you know.
Yeah.
Check for yourself.
Exactly.
You know? And he's a magician. Be careful, you know. Did you see that? He pulled out of his under the rope a piece of cloth. Did you see that? Magic. Huh? And then my question was, which side of the cloth did he present to us? The right one? The wrong one? The better one? The worse one? You know? What was he doing? He was deceiving us. This, that, what was he pointing to?
Yeah.
He looks confused now. I'm happy.
I'm not.
So, you know, this kind of, what is the right side? The left side, the wrong side, which is your preferred side? It's very difficult. Is it the same or different, you know? When we have different colors, there's a clear preference. Which side do you prefer? This side or that side? You know, we don't know. I mean, do you know? Yeah, I prefer this one, I tell you, you know. Why? Because the smell is better than that side, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
So these kind of ideas we have, you know. Right. And then he tells about you make a choice. Do you make a choice? Do you make a choice to listen? I sometimes think I make a choice and I want to listen, and then my mind goes all over the place. Not with him. He's so. I sit next to him. You know, he's the one who knows. You know, he manifests the Buddha. And I think last week I want to repeat this because the Buddha also repeated himself many times. You know, I recorded that sutta. I don't know what it's called, but how is the Dhamma apparent here and now was the question, you know? And the Buddha was very clear, you know, knowing greed as greed, knowing hate as hate, knowing delusion as delusion. That is how the Dhamma is apparent or not. I don't know. But, you know, so sometimes it's a bit heretic to say, you know, the Buddha was asked a question, he kept silent. Doesn't mean he didn't know. They say the Buddha could read the minds of the questioners, you know, and if he would have given an answer, he would be more confused, the questioner. So it's not the not knowing, you know, or when you know, he's more confused when I say something, you know. One of my teachers in school, you know, I really was impressed by him in geography. When he was asked a question, you know, and he didn't know, am I Jesus? Does grass grow out of the pocket of my trousers? No, I'm not Jesus. I don't know, you know. So really stating, or in the Vinaya also, clear statements, you know, when you don't know, say you don't know. When you have seen, you know, you know. You have seen that I have seen, that I have not seen, that I know, I don't know. The clear distinction. And sometimes I'm very scared, and this is a personal reaction. Some people I've met, those who know, not the Buddha, it doesn't make me, somehow he scares me also because, oh, it's mind-blowing, you know. But sometimes I'm, sorry to say this, scary of monks or teachers who say, I know exactly what the Buddha meant with Satipatthana or this or that. For me, this is locking into, rather than saying, you know, my understanding of this is like this, but there's different perspectives. Like what is inside, what is outside, what is internal, what is external, you know? Like when you, sometimes this image is used, full awakening, the fully liberated mind is like you have a perspective of 360 degrees, right? You really see how things are. So maybe we start with our practice, we have 5 or 10 degrees of perspective. And then we start to meditate or put his teaching into practice, you know, and these 5 or 10%, 100% increasing, we, you know, widen that to 10 or 20%. Wow, totally different new perspective, you know. I know now, you know, but you're still probably blind to the 350 or 340 degrees, which you don't see yet, right? I know what I know, but this might be very limited, right? So that's why the Buddha advised also, don't be comfortable with what you know, you know.
Exactly. It is not about this Bhante. It's all about each one of you. Okay? What Bhante knows, this Bhante knows, is just the bit that this Bhante knows. What each of you know about yourself or don't know about yourself is what Bhante is referring to. This is what looking at yourself, ehipassiko, is about. You look at yourself and you will see yourself. That is where you see what you know or what you don't know. And what you see is just what you see. And there's plenty more that you do not know. But as what Bhante says, don't conclude that that is so. But learn to calm your mind down. Yeah? And to come to the practice of meditation as what we have been today, after 2,500 years, we are so restless. We have, you know, been exposed to the environment in such a way. Each one of you should choose how and what you need to do with what you have come into contact with to slow down. It's only that will help you to start seeing yourself, to understand what you know, and then to know what you need to know more, of where you have to go to the next step as a landmark.
I have a question.
Great, because I was just about to say, if there's nothing else, we do to questions, but yeah.
Okay. So in the Mangala Sutta, I think the first advice the Buddha gives to the greatest happiness or blessing is not to associate with fools. One of the highest blessings, right? Sevanachabalam, blah, 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 blah. And so sometimes we cannot choose the people we associate with, you know. So, and fools means not, you know, that they are, might be academic fools, you know, especially in universities, sorry. Ones who speak in universities might be the greatest fools in terms of Dhamma, you know. Welcome in the club. So, like the discernment, what is right knowing, wise knowing in terms of Dhamma, you know, and how do we deal with situations with people who don't know Dhamma? The challenges of life, what you said, you know, like when we live in community, when we live in family, in partnerships with other monks, you know, and that kind of thing. Is the question kind of clear?
Very clear, Bhante, very clear. As Bhante says, asevanacha balanam panditanancha sevana, yeah, pujacha pujaniyanam etam mangalam uttanam. So each and every one of you at any given time would know whether somebody is whoever you meet, is a person that you want to keep company or not. There may be some people in our society that you can't disassociate. There may be some people that you have a choice to disassociate with. So implementing this, somebody that doesn't obstruct me, implementing something that somebody that who is unwise, yeah, is a big personal issue to each and every one of you, depending on the background that you are, the family background that you all come from, depending on the way that you are chosen people, the way you choose your environment and your neighbors, of to decide whom to keep company and whom not to keep your company. Asevanacha balana. And that implementation is something that you have to progress yourself with, finding noble friends, and then understanding that nobility, if that somebody is noble, where will that nobleness take me? And that wisdom must come, that knowledge must be present with stillness. Not easy. If I'm just refer to something in the Mahamangala Sutta, Bhante, the last recital, Puttassa loka dhammehi chittang yassana kampati asokam virajam kemam etam mangalam uttamam. So in the Mahamangala Sutta, the one before the last of the recital, he says, the 8 worldly conditions he talks about. Puttassa loka dhammehi chittang yassana kampati. Kampati means don't distract yourself in a way. Okay, don't be disturbed with. And what is he saying not to disturb with? Labha, alabha. Things that are beneficial, things that are not beneficial to you. Yassa, ayasa. Popularity or unpopularity. Yassa, ninda, prasansa. The way praise and blame goes. Where happiness and sadness comes. Now, these 8 conditions, if you look at it, is mainly related to roles and relationships. Investigate yourself. Look at yourself. You will see how in any interaction with another person, how you look at the beneficial outcome to you in a transaction. That's personal to you. And if that beneficial component is ever disturbed by something, look at the way you are disturbed. Go back to the naturality of popularity and look at the way you in any role is maintaining your popularity in the role. How in a relationship that the lay people are and what you need to do to maintain a relationship and the popularity in the relationship. Yassa ayasa. Look at the way the ninda prasansa, the way the praise or blame fits in. And now just look at yourself. If you are somebody, when you are deprived of something, how you behave, blaming others, right? And when you are blamed, look at the way that you may respond to how others blame you with and how present. Now, this is how your memory has got accumulated up to now. With this Dhamma, in the lay life, living roles, living relationships. And unless you recognize yourself, recognize the intensity that you have to face with others, recognize the way you intensify your role to prove something, this calmness in your mind is less. This calmness in your mind is less. So whether you may know, but you may not relate with. There may be certain things that you do not know. But today, for a practice that we are putting, maybe that we are trying to look at knowing and unknowing, maybe that we still have to be open with knowing and unknowing, but definitely there must be something in you that you know that you must be able to stop, reduce. Definitely. Otherwise, you're constantly in a situation that uncertainty brings about in the practice, brings about some disturbances.
what comes to mind. Then we open the space for the people to comment or ask questions. No, but I want to, like, role and relationship, right? This is this sense of self which looks for orientation, right? When the Buddha talks about the 10 fetters, like mana, this comparing ourselves with others, better than, worse than, or even same as, Often people say, oh, this is nice when we look at same as, but it still strengthens this idea of self and separation, right? And this only goes apparently away with the traditional teachings in terms of full arahantship, Then you stop comparing because there's no need to orientate yourself, better, worse, same, No, there is not sense. Or what I was talking earlier about, this sense of, I want to orientate myself, I want to be more smart than him. I want to give clever answers, I don't want to be embarrassed, blah, 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 blah. This sense of orientation, and even if I feel, he is more wise, I am, not as wise, there's a sense of orientation, a sense of me, And sometimes people stick to very unhealthy relationships, circumstances, you are stuck sometimes in life, in situations, intellectually, no, this doesn't work, you should do something different, and you can't, because you are stuck, because of different conditions. We often don't understand the causes and conditions.
Just on that point, in terms of insight dialogue, is this something that is explored using in those kind of retreats?
Yeah, I mean, this is like when we use the power of relationship. I don't know how you experience, but when you really listen to somebody, like for me, I sit very close to this venerable, and he really speaks, with authority. He does, So I try to do so. But then you let yourself be touched by what is spoken. The words is only tiny part of communication. Why were people, sometimes individuals, sometimes small groups, sometimes large groups, listening to the Buddha, listening to other, probably realized monks, nuns, lay teachers sometimes? While they were listening, they had these deep penetrative insights, stream entry, once returner, no returner, up to full arahantship, while they were listening. Because that was, the eye of Dhamma arose, it said. While sitting in this very seat, the eye of Dhamma arose, that deep knowledge, whatever has the nature to arise, has the nature to pass away. The traditional description of stream entry. Yeah. So don't underestimate the power of listening, deep listening. Today I was speaking a little bit with Venerable Sanatha Vihari. Huh? He's coming next month, I think. I'm not sure if he's coming here as well, But this power of deep listening, like sota means hearing, right? Listening, right? Sotapanna, the one who listens. So often in spiritual, especially Buddhist, Theravada Buddhist circles, there is a strong, noble silence. What is that? Does it mean when Vitakka and Vichara stop, the mind is not thinking anymore? For me, noble silence often meant I was told not to speak and I wanted to speak. It was not noble, I was just told to shut up, But I wanted to speak, And the Buddha sometimes criticized monks, and we were practicing together 3 months, not speaking to each other. He said, like, you fools, you don't speak to each other? Like he encouraged sometimes to speak about the Dhamma, not just be silent. Cultivate mindfulness while you speak, while you are listening. Yes, he praised silence, but not only silence. Life is sometimes silent, sometimes not silent. So when we use the power of relationship, of speaking and listening to what is true and beneficial, then we can really support ourselves as Kalyana Mitta, as noble friends. And why did the Buddha teach? Noble friendship is the whole of the spiritual life. The whole. He rebuked Ananda, Don't say so. It's not half of the spiritual life. It's the full spiritual life. What is taking place? And how do we much tap into that potentiality of, benefiting from others, and how are we good Kalyana Mittas to others? Very powerful, contemplation. Let's also talk about contemplation. How can we develop our full potentials as Kalyana Mittas? Giving and receiving and giving, not both sides, not just one.
And I would like to compliment what you just said about the importance of listening. In this academic world that we are in, maybe most of us are encouraged to read or write, or read and write, rather than listen and pronounce. Okay? So exams. Oh, I'm sorry.
He doesn't know how to put on the microphone.
Exactly, but this technology doesn't go with me.
It does not.
But if you go back to your infancy, you'll understand that you began your life and associated what was then known as a mother tongue by listening and mimicking the sound, pronouncing the sounds with your mouth. And maybe at a later stage in our childhood, that we were encouraged to read and write, right? Read what we wrote. And the skill to listen may have not been progressed as much as this. And just to give an example, there are certain musicians who would like to read notes and play the music, a piano. But there may be certain musicians who just listens to a song once and is able to reproduce it because of the ability to grasp what was said, to put it into words immediately, into action immediately. This is only through the ear you could do. Okay? So even the Dhamma, the Buddha said, Sutta, Dhata, Vachasa, Parichita, Susamaradhaya, Ditya Suparividya. And I'm going to put an example. But this is to do with the naturality of grasping what was said through your ear. And that's why I try to speak with some emphasis. So this, that is a little covered, closed, cobwebbed, rarely used, is opened. As a Buddhist, don't miss this opportunity to hear and listen to the Dhamma rather than keeping a phone to record, memorize, and do things. Because today, all your phones that has so much of Dhamma should enlighten. It has all the knowledge, Bhante. Google, YouTube should be the first to enlighten because it has all the, but it's not about, it's in the wrong memory. It's in the wrong memory. It must be in the memory associated with your ear. It's only then you can pronounce and do what is needed. This may be one reason, Bhante, that I am a little stern, or just to give it in bursts. So at least the attention to listen is present, and maybe that grasping by themselves of their own skill is developed a little. I'm sorry.
No.
I think it's definitely skillful means.
Thank you.
Talking to the converted.
Thank you so much, Bhante. Now I'm going to open the floor to any questions or comments from the audience. If you are here in person, put your hand up. If you are online, put your hand up. If you have any questions, then you can also pop it into the chat, or if you just want to ask anonymously, you could send it to me directly. So we do have an electronic hand come up from Simran and someone from in person as well. So Simran, over to you. Just unmute yourself.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you, Venerables. I want to start off by making a comment, which is that I'm so happy to see you again, Bhante Dhammagawesi, because your last talk with Meta Center in Bankstown literally changed my life day by day up until today. I personally appreciate the way that you are quite clear in your message. It's not ambiguous. And because of that, literally every single day, I have learned about this idea. You said something along the lines of a lot of the suffering just comes from the likes and dislikes, and being able to look at things in such simple terms. I personally, since that day, have worked very hard to reduce my amount of choices to the point where I've seen how I'm actually more like a slave to my choices when I have more choices. Whereas when I was doing, for example, a temporary seminary program and I didn't really have choices, it was a lot more freeing because I wasn't building up that craving for liking and disliking. So my question is, oh, and also Bhante Sukhacitto, thank you so much for also keeping a check on also what Bhante said and reminding us to see things for ourselves, because I did investigate myself. I found that what Bhante mentioned was true. But my question is, I've got to this point where when I don't really have much options, then I just accept and it's not really building up that sort of craving as much. However, what I find that is, even like, let's say I was a monastic or something, there will still be times where there are choices available. And my question is, how then in those situations can we still be skillful to not let ourselves, oh, I like that, so I'm going to go for that, kind of still be, not pleasurable or unpleasurable, but in that middle way?
Very brief. You just do your best and see what the outcome is. You cannot do better than your best. So sometimes you discern the Dhamma knowledge, in terms of what you know intellectually, you reflect, you try to put it into action. Sometimes you are able, sometimes not. But if you are not, then don't beat yourself up, and because this, how we train the mind, by repeating. A very liberal translation of one teaching of the Buddha is repeating your insights or the understood truth deepens the power for insight. In other words, not repeating those insights weakens them or destroy them. I think that's important.
I take your permission again, Bhante. Thank you for your feedback. And let me give you 2 examples of an answer. In the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, when the Buddha talks about this choice of 2 sides, he comes to explaining saying, Ete ko bhikkave ubo anta anupagamma. Don't follow these 2 sides. And he says, Majjima patipada tathagatena. Come to what we relate with middle path. And then he asks what this middle path is, and he says, Ayameva ariyovattangiko maggo. The eightfold path is what this middle path is about. And when you relate with the eightfold path, in the eightfold path are what right speech, right actions, and right livelihood is about. If your choice is associated with speech, and you are asked, now, he says, Musavada Veramani, Pisuna Vacha Veramani, Sampappalapa Veramani, Parusa Vacha Veramani. There are 4 things that you are supposed to restrain with. I take one to give you an example. Every person in this room has a choice whether to say an untruth or not. You agree? We have a choice to say something as an untruth or lie, or not to lie. And the Buddha says, if you say Veramani and choose one side not to lie, momentarily the choice of lie goes away. And you now only have one thing to live with, is what you chose as a precept. So preceptedness with the restrainment of Veramani is one way to reduce your choices. Okay? So greater the Veramanis, greater you let go of the choice. Beyond that, if there are certain things that are still bothering you, the sutta called Sabbasava Sutta has 7 things identified as how to live with. Preceptedness is one of these things. Okay, but there are others. And maybe that if you personally come, we could show you how you apply one of those things in your day-to-day life. And it'll depend on each individual here as to how and what their choices are and which to apply in that way to get the answer that they want. That's the practicality of how the Eightfold Path is lived. Right? So if you're working with tanha and the craving, you have to understand where you come to what is called bhave tabbanti, where you come to a point where you relate with yourself and associated with your own cravings and how to stop what is yours in a personal life, personal situation. Did you get that?
Yes, Bhante, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Can
the
I just
question.
add something to that?
Yes, please.
Like the wonderful example Venerable gave. When we think something to be true, but it is not true. Yeah. So we think with our understanding, which might not be correct with the actual facts. You know, that is the truth. I speak the truth. Later you find out maybe it's not, you know. So were you lying at that time? No, you were not lying. You didn't know better. But then the correct thing is to do, acknowledge, you know, oh, with this new perspective or insight or understanding, you know, I know this was not, you know, you have that flexibility, yeah? You say, at that time, I didn't know better. That was, I think, was the truth was, and, you know, so that is where we send kind of a lot of kindness and compassion towards ourselves, because we can only act the way we can act in this. You know, it's not a deterministic side, but there's so much frustration in the spiritual path, often not really understanding what we know in the mind, we sometimes cannot put into practice, or many times sometimes, you know, to be at peace with this, keep going and growing. And the growing doesn't happen according to our own likes or dislikes, you know. If I would always practice, that is the amazing thing about the Buddha, you know, this 45 years from the moment he got awakened, fully awakened, to the moment he passed away, we don't say, enter parinibbana, you know, 45 years, one flow, one go between thinking, speaking, and acting. No, you know, discrimination, no frictions, no conflicts, you know, thinking one thing, saying another thing, and doing another thing. No, 45 years. I mean, this blows my little monkey mind, big monk mind, whatever.
Thank you so much, Bhante. Thank you for the questions, Imran. And we have a question from the audience here as well.
More simple. Both of you and Bhante's mentioned about relationships. And I was struggling with an issue this morning. I would say I was thinking about something where, let's say, I was insulted. And when I reflected on it today, I clearly came to a position where I could forgive this person or not. No, I didn't want to. I know that it's the lesser part, but I could see some kind of maybe wanting to hurt back that I could identify as one that held me back. But I also saw it as, you know, this is such a simple situation. Like sometimes you think about world events and you think, oh my God, why are these people exciting? Why can't they forgive? And then this was such a small incident and I still couldn't forgive. You know, so I just realized how complex our minds are, even with simple things, and how difficult forgiveness is. My question also is, I want to know why we hold back doing the right thing. After this talk, to some extent, I think they also
Can I just
Just the people online could hear the question. I'm sorry, I'll just quickly say that again. So my understanding of the question is it's about forgiveness and the choice to not forgive, actually. So why is it that we hold back sometimes when doing something in some ways that we know we should be doing? Thank you.
please allow me to strongly disagree with what you said when you said this is a small thing. Because for me, really, I'm applauding what you just were describing. That's exactly, you look at your mind, yeah? You see very clearly, you know, there was this insult, you were not able to forgive, but you were so clear in describing what was happening. And this is knowing. And this is, in my understanding, setting the foundations, the ground for growing. Allowing yourself, possibly in the future, maybe next time, maybe in 84 times, maybe in 1,517 times, to forgive. You were not reacting. You were not fighting back. You watched clearly your mental reaction, but you refrained from the verbal, you know. So this statement here, you know, with inner peace comes world peace. Is that true? We don't have world peace, so because there's no inner peace. But inner peace needs to be embodied, but also lived, you know. You can have inner peace. Oh, leave me alone with my inner peace, you know. That's not, I don't know, what is world peace, you know?
May I, Bhante? Relate with what you say and what you shared. How I dealt with issues in my past in this way was taking ownership of something, of this self. I asked myself if what the other person said was listened and heard by me, and if the other person spoke and said the same thing to me in German, what would have happened to me? As Bhante says, from a known situation, I would have just put myself into an unknown situation. But ask yourself a question. Am I hurt because they said something to me? Or am I hurt because I began to understand what they said in this way? What would that be? Not denying the fact that they said something or not said something, but come back to yourself, because whose hurt is you? Right? So if you are hurt, are you hurt because you understood and comprehended to hurt yourself? Maybe, maybe not. Right? But the moment you put it into a different language that you do not relate with, suddenly it doesn't matter whether you understand. You just don't do anything. You don't get hurt in this world. Yeah. So this is how I dealt with my circumstances, by taking ownership to say that dukkha in me is self-inflicted. I am inflicting this dukkha in me, using the external world and blaming them for. But I just took the blame on myself, not to understand anything in the way that it is said or done around me, and to come to peace as I am the cause of what I'm experiencing. This was a practicality of how I dealt with my circumstances.
And again, you know, we heard this many times, but the moment you point the finger to somebody else, to others or yourself, 3 fingers point to yourself or the others, you know. So always take that into perspective, you know, like you are to blame. Oh, ouch. You know?
Wonderful. Any other questions from the room or online?
I'm just wondering, I'm aware of the time.
We have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, because,
On to
yeah,
it.
you know, so we can go on afterwards, but we should make a ending and then maybe stick around, so whatever, but
Any other questions? Thank you.
Just a quick question about the unknown. There is often in our life, there's a lot of fear of the unknown. And how do we deal with it? Like in so many things, in so many ways, like when we're not well, there's a fear of the unknown, about dying, about like just in so many circumstances in our life that even in meditation, sometimes like there's this area of unknown that there's a certain level of fear. How do we deal with that?
very, very good question. Like the Buddha's advice was, and also in therapy, actually, the way beyond the fear is through the fear, feel the fear. But often we are not able to or willing to. So sometimes also knowing that, and many people confirm this experience, when you do something in spite of the fear, even you are afraid of. And again, this is a wise advice, when we are not able to put it into practice, feel the fear. And when it's overwhelming, go to places in your body, in your mind, where it feels safe or neither pleasant or not unpleasant, like, oh, I'm full of fear, this trembling heart or whatever, But you can feel, the feet touching the floor, that feels stable. The buttocks touching the chair, the cushion. That there's stability, I can breathe in, I can breathe out, So don't get totally lost in that perspective. There's only this fear thing, like the one-pointedness on the distracting emotion.
I take one. The Buddha refers to a word called vichikicha. Vichikicha, fear associated with doubt. Fear and doubt going together. And this is one of the 10 fetters that you are supposed to remove as you progress in the journey. Go back to your conventional life. Go back to your conventional life and look at the word of security and insecurity. Okay? Look at the way that you are doing things to feel secure. Okay? So your insurances, your warranties, guarantees, all these conventional components that this world loves you, causes you a certain assurance. And when they change, this fear comes in role, in circumstances, in a way. So ownership or belonging is a very secure thing to accomplish in the conventional world. So more you say my and relate with a related person, my house, my car, in that way, these are investments that are made for a future. And when whatever the economical circumstances, whatever the ecological or social or whatever the situation that you relate those things with, when they change in its value, right, which is situational, then there is that naturality of fear that comes in a conventional world. But when you come up to the teaching in the Buddha to talk about Vichikicha, this you have to understand that self-identity of Sakkaya Ditthi, of what I am about, and then to understand why I am who I am in that way, to remove this fear that you have. If I'm to give you just an example, if you are in a garden doing some gardening and suddenly come in contact with a reptile, momentarily you have a picture of the reptile in your mind. There's an association of fear. There's an association of doubt as to what it will do to you. You run away and you see the reptile go away. Tomorrow, when you go to the same place, you go with some fear, you go with some doubt, not knowing whether it's going to be there or not, no? But it's not there. But that fear is associated. Yeah? But now the question you have to ask yourself is, am I frightened of the reptile, or am I frightened of my memory of the reptile and the conditions I saved that memory with? And this is vidarshana. This is vipassana. To go back in yourself, to look at incidents where you at caused fear, and then to look at the causation associated to remove each one of these in the practice. There is a justifiable because and a because and a because, with the fear. So when you do vidarshana or vipassana meditation in a way, right, to look at yourself, as Bhante said, the knowing and the unknowing are still present in that way. There are certain things I don't know, but there are the knowns in a way. Spend the time to deal with it, and more you bring stillness with that, remove those fears in a way, that stillness will come, the wisdom will come to deal with the rest. Such as the future is unknown. Yeah? But what am I doing with that unknown factor, which is causing me this anxiety? Okay? So aging, so like this, there's a lot of elements, 20 things to talk about self-identity of Sakkayaditthi and associated Vicikiccha. And that is a long discussion to have. But fair to say that I have fear. Good. If you know it, remove as much as you can. If you don't know it, leave it until you get to the point of knowing what is there and why it is there. Okay.
And that classical example, if you take a reptile to be a snake, so next day you return with that fear and you see, oh, it's a rope. It's not a snake,
Yeah,
Then what a fool I was.
Yeah.
No, at that time it was, you were afraid of a rope. You must be really a fool,
The hardest part is when it became a trauma.
Yeah.
Like something that created the fear and it was traumatic. Then that is very hard to repair. Yeah.
And that was he depicting so well, like you return to that place with what are you afraid of? The memory, it's that conditioning, it's that, fixation on that past experience. You're stuck with that.
Go back to this lady who said that she had an experience of being hurt. Tomorrow, day after, if she goes to the same location where she was sad, it'll remind her, this happened, and that experience will come, that emotion, because we are still holding on to the incident with certain things, the values, the whatever that we put to it to create a causation is still present in that way. So one of the exercises you should encourage is this vipassana vidarshana, to look at causations and to know how to undo some of the causations. So in the knowing area, you reduce the intensity and the way you're disturbed in your mind. Then you become calmer, stiller, and then it's easier to experience life going forward without getting disturbed with. Take a deep breath. That's all you have to take. I like that you have left that. Don't get hurt. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, everyone. Any other last questions before we close the session? Speak now. We've got 2 venerables from overseas. Okay. All right. Otherwise, I think the venerables have said that they're willing to stay back if there's anyone who wishes to approach them afterwards. And venerables, any last concluding remarks before we do dedication?
Know the knowing. Now is the knowing.
Sit with that one for a bit. Any last concluding remarks and then a closing dedication and merits?
I would like to go with Bhante's conclusion.
No. I started, he ends.
I think we should be with his last words. They're missed. Yeah.
Some merit sharing or?
Yes, Bhante.
You. No, you.
Please.
You start and I finish.
So to everybody, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me and Venerable Sukhacitto as well to this discussion. Thank you for participating in a personal way, and thank you to everybody who has been online, so patient, listening, and having these questions. And as the Buddha says, this investigation of self is the highest meritorious transaction that a person and a human being can do. Yeah, it doesn't matter about the generosity of danas and whatever. This investigation of who I am and looking at myself with a tanha and all the other things associated is the most important thing to do. And the merit that you have gathered. May this merit be bestowed upon each and every one of you towards your well-being, your betterment, and whatever the spiritual goal that you aspire, and also with all the people who have passed away in your names and you wish goodwill upon, may they receive this merit that we are sharing with them. May they and their progression of the spirituality and the spiritual path be fulfilled. Thank you for your patience and participation.
Of course.
And I invite you to reflect the last, whatever, 97 minutes or so. What touched you the most? Was there an incident in what you heard, what you have seen, you've smelled, tasted, touched, thought about, that you really think, wow, that was touching. That was, knowledge arose in that moment. And trust that, really. Like for me, when he pulled out that cloth, that sticks to my mind. I'm very forgetful usually, but something like that. What is the right side? What is whatever? We have, I hope you have maybe one, maybe two, maybe a few more of those moments, and trust that no, not more. And share it with others, the way you live, not in terms of preaching or so, but the way you live. These qualities of kindness, of compassion when kindness meets suffering, problems, difficulties. That sense of kindness when it meets happiness, contentment, joy. It becomes sympathetic joy. I rejoice. Like when you shared, how you were touched by Bhante's talk last time, wow, wonderful, I can really rejoice in it. And these really metta, compassion, and sympathetic joy, these are the foundations for the equanimity, not being, torn and tossed around so much by these 8 worldly conditions, Really that we can live more at peace with such a world which is not at peace, with such confusion in the world, with so much not knowing. Thank you.
Sadhu, 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 sadhu.
Thank you so much, Venerables, for all of you sharing the really thought-provoking quotes and information, but the beautiful analogies that you've used as well. I think this is one of those talks that no doubt we will be able to revisit many times and still get something from it. So thank you so much for coming and participating in this dialogue as well. Thank you to those who have asked questions and for participating in the session today. We do have a lot of amazing events coming up. We have some special events coming up, including Ajahn Yul will be coming to Sydney and Melbourne as part of his Australia teaching tour. This is organised by the Metta Centre. For those who don't know, Ajahn Yul, he usually resides in Hong Kong, and so he will be flying over to give us teachings, not just in these Monday, Wednesday sessions, but also a 4-day retreat as well. So you're welcome to join for that. And that's on the 22nd of May to the 25th of May in Wingello. All the information is on our website. We also have a 2-day urban retreat. So this is a non-residential retreat with Venerable Vimocha, who is coming from Thailand. And that's on the 17th to the 18th of May. And that is in Darlinghurst, so in the middle of the city. And it's just on the weekend. You can come without taking any time off work. And it's also for free, and we will feed you for free. So not only is there Dhamma, but also he's a really good teacher as well. There you go. So many events and teachers coming. We also have a regular event. So this Sunday, we have I, Karinika, and also the nuns at Santi Forest Monastery. This Sunday on the 27th of April in the evening, it's a really beautiful family-friendly session where there are teachings, meditation, and food as well. And that's at Parramatta. Next Monday, we have Venerable Akinchana, who is coming back again to give us an excellent talk like what he did last time. And it's on Monday in the evening at Bankstown. You could also join us online. Next Wednesday, back here in the same time, same place. You can join us in person or online. And it's Venerable Koi Khan, and she is going to be joining us by video. And the session is on contemplating death and impermanence. So We've got many sessions and events coming up. All of this information is on our website. If you would like to join our mailing list, our WhatsApp group, our Facebook, you can do that and stay connected with us. If you like the work that we do, then you can also make a donation online as well. And there are various activities that you can also join throughout the year, and that usually gets updated through newsletters as well as websites. So thank you all so much for participating. Thank you again, Venerable.
I just want to express my deep appreciation. I don't know, since, whoever is responsible for putting us together. I was asked, you were in town, if you should teach it. Yes, so give him the space to teach. And then they're both here. So whoever had this idea, I think it was a brilliant idea to meet you.
Thank you. Same wonderful opportunity to be with seniors in this asana.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it was Sin's brilliant idea, as usual.
You're to blame for that.
Thank you so much, Venerable. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.